Hi, my name is Camilla Hawthorne. I'm currently an assistant professor in the Sociology department at UC Santa Cruz. I'm also a principal faculty member in critical race and ethnic studies, as well as a faculty affiliate of the Science and Justice Research Center and the Legal Studies program at UC Santa Cruz. My teaching at Santa Cruz is primarily focused on questions of race, racism, inequality, migration, and citizenship. So I'm currently teaching a class called Migrant Europe, which is looking at historical and contemporary patterns of immigration, racism, and xenophobia in Europe. I also teach a class called The Political Economy of Race, which, rather than looking at economic stratification along racial lines in a presentist way, actually tries to understand the deeper colonial roots of contemporary forms of economic inequality, both within nations but also between nations. I've always believed in theorizing from the ground up. So my engagements, my academic or theoretical engagements, are very much shaped by my involvement with different activist collectives, particularly in Europe. So I work with a collective of Black youth in Italy who are engaged in very interesting projects of translation. So, if there is no apparatus for institutional apparatus for Black studies in Italy, what does it mean to really build an Italian Black studies outside of the academy? How do we engage in this complicated and politically fraught process of translation? The DE actually ended up shaping my intellectual trajectory in a lot of ways, including ways that were really unexpected for me. So when I started my PhD program, I was really interested in studying the ways that African migrants in Italy were leveraging digital media technologies as a way to make broader diasporic connections that would in turn impact their everyday lives, help them overcome discrimination within Italy. And I thought this was what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to bring this very kind of, critical perspective that was informed by digital media STS and new media studies to this, growing field of digital diaspora studies. And I was going to bring, a serious consideration of, power and racism to the study. And then I went to Italy the first summer after the first year of my PhD, and I realized that these questions that I was asking were actually not the most interesting questions that I could be asking about what was unfolding in Italy more broadly, and that there was actually a much wider set of contestations that were happening at that moment around the borders of Italianness. So, Black youth in Italy really mobilizing around the category of citizenship and trying to wrench open the exclusions of this liberal category of citizenship to make room for Blackness within the category of Italianness. And for me, this actually opened up a whole host of questions that I was able to begin to answer with some of the theoretical tools that I got from the DE and STS. I ended up doing a lot of archival work in the archives of Italian racial theorists like Cesare Lombroso, Alfredo Niceforo, Giuseppe Sergi, to really understand what the prehistories of these debates over the boundaries of Italianness were, and to really look at the pivotal role of racial science in attempting to fix the racial identity of Italy, which has always been sort of caught between Europe and Africa, whiteness and Blackness. Particularly at this political moment, the kinds of intellectual tools that you will sharpen in this program are so valuable, right? Whether it's, this question of, what it means to live in a post-fact or post-truth era, how to square, the attacks on science with, an understanding of science as one of many ways of knowing that is also, laden with power and racism and colonialism, even to, the rearrangements of race that are happening in this particular moment. So there's a project that I'm working on at UC Santa Cruz now with their Science and Justice Research Center, which is really trying to understand how we theorize race after the supposedly post-racial moment, right? Where we have this very tidy narrative that, in the wake of World War II, racism didn't go away, but it took on a more subtle, harder to discern kind of manifestation that was very much embedded in categories like culture and religion. But we're seeing all around us that very helpful story is sort of running out of steam at this moment when we're seeing, debates about ancient DNA and what that has to do with racial categories, when we're seeing white supremacists and white nationalists clinging to recent genomics research, and we're seeing, a return to very explicitly still somewhat biologically based understandings of racism. I think STS helps us understand all of these things that are happening in this moment, in a way that also I think is really important for universities who are looking for faculty whose work is both theoretically engaged but also very politically relevant to our moment. The classes that I took in STS really gave me an intellectual framework to begin to move beyond a presentist understanding of citizenship, migration, refugee politics, and really understand this within a broader kind of intellectual political genealogy. Particularly in these very interdisciplinary fields, places like CSTMS become sort of secondary intellectual homes, right? It was a place where I knew that I could engage in a particular set of conversations, that my work would be legible in a particular way with this group of folks. It was very exciting because when I was a student here, there was a critical mass of other grad students who were very interested in post-colonial science and technology studies, which is one of the ways in which I understand my own work. And also, the capstone class in the DE program, where, it's effectively a writing workshop, was extraordinarily helpful because I had just come back from field work. I was struggling with this archival and ethnographic material and really figuring out how to make my work legible to these different fields that I saw myself as a part of: geography, Black studies, STS. And to be in that space, with a community of scholars who were reading my work, who understood one of the audiences that I was trying to reach, was extraordinarily helpful and really helped me get over that initial hurdle of writing. It's through this program that I also got involved in another initiative, which is, sort of beyond Berkeley, which was a digital science and technology studies volume, which is finally coming out in April of this year. And the goal of that book is to really be the first coherent, it's called a handbook and a field guide of digital science and technology studies. So really trying to understand digital objects, the internet, using some of the same theoretical tools of science and technology studies through the training that I got here at Berkeley in CSTMS, that allowed me to connect to this broader community of scholars who are thinking specifically about the digital in relation to STS.